Good morning, students. So let us discuss next part of the lesson, the Kings of Vijayanagara. So what is the meaning of Vijayanagara? The city of victory. Okay. So the Vijayanagara kingdom was established by Harihararaya and Bukkaraya around 1336 CE. Okay. After the Harihararaya and Bukkaraya, so other family members were ruled the Vijayanagara kingdom, like Sangama dynasty, Salva, Tuluva and Aravati families ruled the empire. Okay, so after the end of the Kakatiya kingdom, so Vijayanagara kingdom was started around Karnataka and Andhra and Tamil Nadu areas. So out of these Vijayanagara kings, Krishnadevaraya was the famous king. Okay, so how they were ruled the kingdom we will discuss in this class. So captains of the troops, the Amara Nayakas. So already you know the Nayaka and Amara Nayakas we discussed in the previous class. So the warriors were appointed as Nayakas in a particular area to control that area and to collect the taxes from that area. So in this Vijayanagara kingdom also the Nayakas and Amara Nayakas played a vital role. Okay, so the entire kingdom was actually controlled and administered by the commanders of these armies. Okay, those are called Nayakas. So this was explained by Domingo Pias about Vijayanagara during Krishnadevaraya's period. Let us read what he wrote about these Nayakas. So this king has a million fighting troops. Who is having million fighting troops? Krishnadevaraya was having million fighting troops, which include 35,000 cavalry. Cavalry means horse riders. So million means 1 lakh. So out of 1 lakh fighters, 35,000 cavalry. So ready to be dispatched to any quarter whenever necessary. So he is the most feared king in these parts. So these troops were ready to be dispatched to any quarter. So any place, if anyone revolted against the king, so these troops will go there and they try to suppress that revolt. So the captains of these troops are the nobles of his kingdom, and they hold the city, the towns and the villages of the kingdom. So whatever the area allotted to them, so they are having more powers in that area. There are captains among them who have a revenue of about 1,000,000 gold coins. So others to 200 or 300 or 500,000 coins. So they collected, some warriors or some Nayakas collected more taxes and some are collected less taxes from those areas. The king fixes for each, according to his revenue, the number of troops which he must maintain on foot, on horses and elephants. So these Nayakas should maintain the army. So based on his revenue, who are collecting more revenue, they have to maintain more army. Who are collecting less revenue, they should maintain less army. So the king only fixes that. Okay, so these troops are always ready for duty whenever and wherever they may have to go. So besides maintaining these troops, so each captain has to make his annual payment to the king. So what are the duties of the Nayakas? They have to maintain army and they have to pay some revenue to king. Okay. Out of the revenue, some amount they should retain with them to maintain the army, and some part of the revenue they have to pay to king. That is the duty of the Nayakas. So, in addition to these troops, the Nayakas are maintaining some troops. In addition to that, the king also had his own troops. He maintained his own army, okay, to participate in wars. Okay, next. The captains mentioned here were the Nayakas. So those are called, captain is called a Nayaka. So these Nayakas held Amara revenue assignments, some areas. So the place is called, which is allotted to Nayakas, that place is called Amara. So that's why those are called Amara Nayakas. So, and they were given charge of some villages and cities whose revenue they could collect and use. So these Nayakas they were given charge of some villages, and they have a obligation to maintain a certain number of troops or army. Okay, next. These are also having some judicial powers and administrative powers. They also administrated the areas under their control, and they have judicial powers also. This was quite similar to the system of the Delhi Sultanate, whose nobles are amirs were given similar revenue assignments called iktas. So the what the system is followed by the Krishnadevaraya. So that same system was followed by Delhi Sultans. Okay, next. Most of the Amara Nayakas were Telugu warriors. Why? Because here the Krishnadevaraya or other Vijayanagara kings ruled Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Rayalaseema and Tamil Nadu areas. That's why. So who are appointed Nayakas in Telugu states. So those are most of those were the belongs to Telugu language people. So they recruited their soldiers usually from among their own villages. Okay, and trained them. These armies were loyal to the Nayakas rather than to the king. So why? So these armies were appointed by Nayakas, not by the king directly. So that's why. So these armies loyal to the Nayakas only. Many powerful Nayakas like Salva Narasimha or Narasanayaka controlled areas and at times. So Salva Narasimha or Narasanayakas ruled Vijayanagara kingdom between 1486 to 91. So those were more powerful Nayakas. So these Nayakas could even challenge the Vijayanagara kings. In fact, some of them were so powerful that when a king died or defeated, they took control of power in their own hands and themselves become kings. So when the emperor died, or when the emperor defeated by other kings, so these Nayakas, powerful Nayakas, declared independence, and they themselves become the kings. Okay, next. Here at the time of Chola kingdom, in the previous class we discussed about the Chola dynasty. So in the Chola dynasty, to rule those villages, they appointed some councils. So who are having a land or jamindars, those are appointed to control those villages. But in Vijayanagara kingdom, so these are appointed Nayakas to rule those villages. Okay, things had begun to change in Vijayanagara Empire as the power of the armies and Nayakas increased. Okay, next, Krishnadevaraya, the ruler. So he was the famous ruler in Vijayanagara kingdom. He is called Sri Krishna Devaraya. You may know about him. Okay, so Krishnadevaraya ruled from 1509 CE to 1529 CE. So he was a great general who led the Vijayanagara armies successfully against the Brahmani Sultan and also against the Gajapatis of Odisha. Already we discussed about Brahmani Sultan. So another side of the Brahmaputra river. Okay, so one large kingdom was there that was split into 5 kingdoms. Okay, so another king, Gajapatis of Odisha. So Vijayanagara army successfully fought against the Brahmani Sultans and also against the Gajapatis of Odisha. So he also subdued several chiefs who had revolted in Karnataka, Andhra and Tamil regions. So usually, so these Amara Nayakas, when they become powerful, they may revolt against the kings. So at the time, the king should send some troops to suppress them. So like that, the Sri Krishnadevaraya also subdued several chiefs who had revolted in Karnataka, Andhra and Tamil regions. So that's why he got control on the entire region in south of river Krishna and other eastern parts. Okay, so during this period, at the time of Sri Krishnadevaraya period, the Portuguese had established their power over some parts of the western coast like Goa. So Portuguese, at the time Portuguese, Britishers, okay, so many people came to India for trade. So at the time of Sri Krishnadevaraya, so Portuguese had established their power over some ports of the western coast like Goa. So Krishnadevaraya established friendly relationship between with the Portuguese to import the horses and firearms from them. So he maintained relation with Portuguese people. He also employed Portuguese troops in his wars. Okay, so we discussed in the previous class one of the Vijayanagara king recruited Muslim warriors in his troop like this. So Sri Krishnadevaraya also employed Portuguese troops in his wars. Okay, every year on the Vijayadashmi day, Vijayadashmi means Dasara day, Vijayadashmi day, the king organized elaborate festivities and worship which concluded with a massive parade of his armies. Means he showed his power by through parade of his armies. So in our country also at the time of Independence Day and at the time of Republic Day, we show our army power through parade like that. So Sri Krishnadevaraya also conducted parade of his armies. So on this day, all the chiefs and Amaranayakas of the empire brought their tributes to the king. So at the time, the Amaranayakas and Nayakas or other warriors should bring gifts to the kings in this occasion. So Krishnadevaraya paid special attention to the temples of his kingdom and personally visited many of them like Tirupati, Srisailam and Ahobilam. He also donated a large number of temples. Okay, So Krishnadevaraya's inscriptions state that he had distributed the great treasure gained in his successful wars to all the major temples of southern India. So at the time of wars, what they will do? So after defeating the other kingdoms, so they loot the treasure. So at the time, so the Sri Krishnadevaraya donated much funds to the temples. So even they constructed Raya Gopurams in different temples to remember him. Okay, so he also built some beautiful temples in Vijayanagara city also. So Krishnadevaraya was also a patron of Telugu literature, and he himself composed the poetic work Amukta Malyada on the life of Andal, the Tamil Bhakta poetess. So Sri Krishnadevaraya himself also a poet, and he composed the poetic work Amukta Malyada on the life of Andal, the Tamil Bhakta poetess. So his court was adorned by 8 poets known popularly as Ashtadiggajs. Already you know about Ashtadiggajs. So one of the poet is Tenali Ramakrishna. So I think you read so many stories about Tenali Ramakrishna. So in his court, so in his kingdom, so these Ashtadiggajs were appointed as poets. So who are called Ashtadiggajs? So they are Allasani Peddana, Mukkutimana, Durjati, Ramaraja Bhushana, Tenali Ramakrishna, Pingali Surana, Ayalarazu Ramabhadrudu, and Madayya Gari Mallana. So these 8 poets are called Ashtadiggajs. Once again, Allasani Peddana, Mukkutimana, Durjati, Ramaraja Bhushana, Tenali Ramakrishna, Pingali Surana, Ayalarazu Ramabhadrudu, and Madayya Gari Mallana. So everyone should remember these 8 names. Okay, so the power of the Vijayanagara kings grew further during the time of Krishnadevaraya's successors Achyutadevaraya and Alaya Ramaraya. So after the Sri Krishnadevaraya also, so other kings like Achyutaraya and Alaya Raya also established and extended their kingdom. So as the Bahmani rulers were unable to fight with the Vijayanagara individually, so the Bahmani kingdom was divided into 5 kingdoms. No? So individually those are unable to fight with the Vijayanagara kings. So that's why finally by 1565 AD, so all the 5 Bahmani kingdoms joined together and defeated Ramaraya in Rakkasi Tangadi war, also known as Tallikota war. So the Bahmanis rulers or kings were unable to defeat the Vijayanagara kings individually. So that's why to defeat these people, those 5 Bahmani kingdoms were joined together and fought against the Vijayanagara kings. So in that war, so those were defeated. Ramaraya in Rakkasi Tangadi war, also known as Tallikota war. So with this war, so mostly the Vijayanagara kingdom ends. Okay, so they looted and destroyed the city of Vijayanagara. So after this war, some successors from Vijayanagara kingdom shifted their capital to Chandragiri near Tirupati, but never regained the glory of earlier times. So at the time, some part of this empire came under the control of the sultans, Bahmani sultans. The chiefs and Nayakas became independent in other parts. So, who are appointed as Nayakas at the time of Vijayanagara kingdom? So, after the end of the Vijayanagara kingdom, so those Nayakas declared independence in the other parts of the Vijayanagara kingdom. Clear? So, next part of the lesson we will discuss tomorrow. Thank you.